Wow, what a morning. I was so moved by Chip, what you were saying this morning, and and hearing from all our dear therapy and psychiatry and psychologist friends. Honestly, that was so powerful. And I could almost feel if Sid were here listening to that too, what that would have meant for him coming from all of you. And some of whom in the very beginning this was brand new, just so brand new. And I remember before when Sid had told us his story of one day psychology would be sharing this understanding in their work and in that field. And but there were no psychologists yet. And so I remember we had one retreat that we all went on very in the early days. And there was a rumor that we were sitting on a beach and there was a rumor that there was a psychologist over there on the other side of the beach. And we're all like, whoa. and then they started to come to Salt Spring, these people that we were so in awe of because they had been trained in a certain way, and all of a sudden we're so open. We're just so open, and hearing their stories of follow-up. They come to Salt Spring, they go back to their practices, and then come back to Salt Spring with these amazing stories that were just so inspiring to us. I know our stories may have inspired them in the beginning, but then when they came back and said, this is really working in actual offices, and it was so profound. So thank you all. It was so beautiful. And so what occurred to me earlier when Chip was telling our story, and a big factor that occurred to me that was came into play when I first heard about the principles and first heard Sid on that special day in my life, was that I was really struck by something that I may have read in Zen parables and or analogies, and about how our state of mind is not, doesn't have to be influenced by the external. But I had never really felt that or heard that so deeply as when I heard Sid talk about it that day, because all the while I was listening, something was coming undone for me. Like before that day, I didn't have peace of mind. My mind was so busy and my head was just so full of all these thoughts, mostly negative thoughts, mostly worry, and they were based either on the past or the future, as we do when we're not present. And instead of having peace of mind, it occurred to me this morning, because I was thinking, what's the opposite of peace of mind? And it hit me, it's chaos. So in my head, I was living in chaos. And there was no room for my natural healthy state to come through. I was so caught up in that chaos. And I know that nowadays, even though my mind is quieting down quite a bit, I know that I'm aware that there's still a lot of extraneous thought that doesn't need to be there, and I get caught up in thinking about the past and the future. But now that I understand that it doesn't have to be that way, that peace of mind is actually attainable. And I had given up on that before I met Sid. And the other thing that occurred to me that was so impactful that day was the realization that I had let my happiness be dependent on other people or events. And so I was at the mercy of everything that was going on around me. And that looked so credible to me, that well, of course I'm going to be upset when someone says that to me. But I didn't see that one day that same thing might upset me and the next day it didn't. I didn't get that until after I heard Sid, and I started to get this understanding. And so then that natural wisdom and that natural health started to speak to me, because now I realized this personality and this personal self that looks so real to me, and of course I'm going to believe in it. It's me, of course you have to believe in it. I started to realize it's not always the best thing to listen to, that there's another part of me that I could start listening to. And the more I listened to it, like the more I listened to that wisdom and that beautiful feeling, the more it spoke up. And I often share that when I first came across this understanding, I had become so unhappy with all that chaotic thought that I might have a few days in a year where I was really happy, what I considered really happy back then. But most of the time I was basically walking around doing my, whatever I had to do in life, but with this background of insecurity and worry and just anxiety. And that took over most of my waking life. And then once I started to hear truth, my happiness started to grow, and it squeezed out more and more of that troubled thinking. And nowadays, the happiness is like this big in my life, and then the negativity is about this big. So the ratio totally reversed. And there was no technique, there was no action that made that happen. I didn't have to fix anything. I was trying to fix everything before through meditation, through formal meditation, like going to the Zen center and reading Zen books, or as I said, like working on that perfect healthy diet. And there were so many theories about diet that one week it would be this one, and then the next, and I didn't get it, that there was nothing, there was no compass, like there was no standard from inside. It was all theory. So I'm just so grateful that those little insights that seem so little at the time, that, oh, I don't have to be unhappy if somebody is rude to me. I don't have to be unhappy if I don't feel well that day, or if I hadn't slept and I'm not ready to get up early and be a parent. I don't have to be unhappy for whatever. And that was so huge, because Sid had this expression in the very beginning that some of us that have been around for a while will remember, when he'd say, it's just that the poor me syndrome. Like, and that was me, like, oh, I've got such a rough time in life. I've got this problem and that problem. So just even finding out that there's nothing out there that's causing my unhappiness. And over the years, of course, when we share our story and we say how we got that, the beautiful feeling and those insights in the beginning, and then our life changed, that didn't mean that we didn't have the same challenges with old habits coming up, or things, life being a contact sport, something might come up. But and I know a lot of people say this, that in the beginning they hear this understanding, they get an insight, they get really happy, and then as time goes on, they start wondering what happened. I don't have that feeling anymore. How will I get it back? Is it gone? How do I stay there permanently? And all these things. But the beautiful part is, even though in the beginning I know that life got so beautiful, that I got the feeling so strong, that it doesn't matter if I don't keep that honeymoon feeling now, because like when I first heard something, it was such a change in my reality. It just hit me this morning. I was thinking about it. It was like two worlds were colliding. My old world was poor me, just total worry about what was going to become of me and my family, insecurity, doubt about whether was I a good human being, just the whole range of things that we think of when we're feeling insecure. And then all of a sudden, it's all flipped over and I see a whole other world. And so I would, after that first time when I met Sid, then as Chip said, we would be talking in a little community center or something. We'd go in here and talk. And I would sit there and I would become so emotional, and I'd be watching Sid and listening to him talk, and the tears would be just flowing. And this would happen every time I'd go in here and talk. And part of me would think, wow, is this going to be like forever? That I'll just turn into this, this puddle of, emotion. But I was looking back on it, it just hit me like those two worlds colliding. It was like, it was a shock to my system in a way. And so now I don't try and get that feeling back of that deep emotion and feel like I have to feel it all the time. What I see is I'm living in a different world. I'm living in more of contentment, and also the ability to be content no matter what life is bringing me. And to be, like, as I said, we were searching for nirvana, right? And that was such a big thing in the late 60s and early 70s. People were traveling to India and Tibet, and they were doing all these things to go find it somewhere. And when all along it was inside us, right? So what we were doing, as I said earlier, is I was looking for something because I didn't feel I was enough, or that life was giving me enough. I was looking for more. And some of the people who have been around since the early days may have remembered Sid saying, don't look for more. Be content. And that seemed so simple when I first heard him say that it almost seemed like, well, how can that make a big impact? Like, it's too simple. And then when he said one day, the best thing you can do is just be ordinary. Just go home and, cook your meals and be with your family and just be ordinary. And I remember that was such a huge disappointment when I first heard him say that, because I really wanted to do what he did. I wanted to go and talk to more people and have this more a big part of our life. And then when I look back, if he hadn't said that, then I wouldn't have experimented with just being ordinary and being grateful for the simple things in life. And not only did he say and suggest it, he lived it. So we had the beautiful gift of seeing someone be able to enjoy the simple things in life and be thrilled about mowing their lawn or just being. And so to me, those simple things that they're so easy to overlook, because we're looking for the complicated, or we're looking for a technique to go somewhere, when the whole message is be present and really see what the beauty of life that's right there in the moment.